This episode is brought to you by Pause, Breathe, Reflect, the app that can help bring more mindfulness to your everyday moments. Imagine what would be possible if more people could live more mindfully. Hey there, my fellow like-hearted humans. It's Michael, and this is the Kintsugi Podcast. And this week, I have our final installment of our Open Awareness series all around my bike ride across America in 2022. From Astoria, Oregon, to Washington, D.C., and the Lincoln Memorial. And in so many ways, my ride was the story of America, the land of opportunity. Each day we wake up, we have an opportunity to let people know that they're loved, they're heard, they're seen. We have an opportunity to practice gratitude and to be thoughtful as we travel forward. We have the opportunity to be creative and innovate, make things better, create a better tomorrow, not only for ourselves, but those around us and our planet. America, I learned, is absolutely beautiful. As Ray Charles sang, from the spacious skies in Montana, to the amber waves of grain in Kansas, to those purple mountain majesties. Gosh, I still remember that day I met the Grand Tetons for the first time. I snapped a photo, and that photo is my screensaver for my phone. Now, when Ray sang about the fruited plain, I'm not really sure what he meant by that, but I'm sure that's beautiful as well. The nature of America is absolutely beautiful. If you haven't discovered it yet, do so. Do yourself a favor. And the people of America are also beautiful. But we're hurting. There's no doubt about that. The story of America, though, is not perfect. After all, we're trying to become a more perfect union. So with all of our beauty, we also have some blemishes. And as a patriot, I believe it's our responsibility to talk about all of it. Our beauty, and some of our darker moments. We have a history of humiliating others, starting with our first people in 1619 in the slave practice and how we've treated people of color ever since. We have humiliated people in rural America. We have offshored their sense of dignity, their sense of purpose. And when you lose that, it can feel shameful. We have othered people in urban environments and people who are willing to come to America to create their own beautiful story. And this humiliation, this othering, causes pain, transgenerational pain. It's a ripple effect, but not a pleasant one. It moves from generation to generation, and too many people in too many communities look for maladaptive ways to treat their pain. These maladaptive ways of treating pain doesn't heal it. It only makes matters worse. This pain is part of our story. But I believe the beautiful part of this story can be around healing. Like Kintsugi, we might be cracked and broken, but we can find a way to come together and highlight these scars as golden symbols of our strength and resilience. They can be a reason to celebrate, but we first have to acknowledge our history before we can move forward. We can try, but it's difficult. Once we acknowledge and accept, then we can take action that brings us together, because what happens to you happens to me. We are all connected. We are all one. And I felt this. I saw it. I heard it as I rode across the country. And as I sit here today, I'm more in love with America and her story. With all of her beauty and all of her blemishes and all of her broken parts, I love her even more, having gone through what we went through, meeting all those people, seeing all of her beauty, and yes, discovering more about the blemishes, things that I never knew, that I was never taught in school. And those moments were difficult, but I'm glad I went through them. On the last leg of the trip, I was traveling the C&O Canal Path into Washington, D.C., and eventually the Lincoln Memorial. And I chose the Lincoln Memorial because I believe it honors America's greatest kintsugi artist, Abraham Lincoln. And during the leg, there was a section that took me through Antietam's battlefield. It was the place of the bloodiest day in American history. Over 22,000 troops lost their lives during the Battle of Antietam during the Civil War. That morning when I rode through the battlefield, it was quite humid and very foggy. It was almost eerie. I was the only one around. I didn't see any tourists. There weren't any fellow cyclists. And as I came into the battlefield, there was this unbelievable chill that came over my body. I started to shiver. It was almost like all the spirits there were wrapping themselves around me. This chill stayed until I left the battlefield. To say the least, it was a very spooky moment. It really shook me and stayed with me for the rest of the trip into DC. Now, I don't know why it happened, but I do believe this. If we can bounce back, if we can find some resilience to stand back up again after that bloody day in our history, again, we're not perfect, but I'm optimistic that if we can recover from that, we can recover from what divides us today. We can find a pathway forward. And as we think about moving forward, I've also been reflecting on how does kintsugi move forward. Last November, I brought the show back after a bit of a break during the pandemic. And I've had great fun interviewing so many wonderful, like-hearted humans who have shared their story, and I hope their stories have inspired you to find a way to move forward in the way you wish to move forward. Perhaps heal, perhaps reconnect, and put a beautiful ripple into the world. That said, running a podcast is still a pretty heavy lift, and I've had moments over the last year when I've wondered if the juice is worth the squeeze. So today, I'm pausing, I'm breathing, I'm reflecting on the future of kintsugi. Do I continue it into 2025? Do I continue it in a different format? All questions that I hope to get some clarity on as we get closer to the new year. But as long as I have this podcast, there's one last thing I wish to share about the story of America. I want this recorded because I want my grandkids, if I have grandkids, to know that their grandfather stood on the right side of history. Because as I mentioned earlier, I'm willing to fight for America. I want to create a better tomorrow for them and for everyone, and to continue this beautiful American story. So I want to share a story with you. And it's about an interaction I had with former President Trump. In August of 2019, I was down in Washington, D.C. to speak at an event. And usually when I go down to D.C. now, I like to stay with one of my good friends from high school and her husband. They live in Northern Virginia, and they belong to Trump National, Donald Trump's country club. And on the morning of my talk, my friend said, rumor has it, Trump will be playing today. Playing golf, that is. So let's go to the club and have breakfast. We might be able to see him. As we walked into the country club, no one asked who I was. They didn't check my ID, although they knew who my friend was because she was a member of his club. And we came into the country club, the clubhouse, where the players go, to have a meal before they shoot a round of 9 or 18. And I've been in many a clubhouse in my day, and this one was unusual. No one was there. It was a Saturday morning, about 8 a.m., and no one was there. We were the only two people at a table of about 20 tables. As we were having breakfast, the energy of the room started to change. The Secret Service came in. There was a German Shepherd or two. Although we were still the only table and no one asked for my name or ID. 10 more minutes went by and and there was a phone call at the bar, and you could tell someone was placing an order. 13 minutes later, the omelets were ready, and President Trump came in, and 3 other gentlemen sat with him at a table. My friend and I were about 10 feet away from him. And you know what happened next? Absolutely nothing. He didn't even look our way. I was sitting with a member of his club, a member of his business. There wasn't even a glance our way. There wasn't a, "Good morning, folks. Hey, it's a great day. Are you playing today? Thanks for being a member." There was nothing. All he cared about was him. And that has always been his story. It's always been about him. So if you think he gets you, that he understands you, that he's willing to fight for you or hang out with you, don't be mistaken. He doesn't even care about people who spend tens of thousands of dollars to be a member of his club. You, my friend, are simply a prop that he's using in his reality TV show. And you are someone he's trying to sell merch to. Merch that, by the way, happens to be made in China. So you see this story he's created, that he's peddling, that's all about how much he cares about you. It's simply a lie. It's a tale. He loves to make up stories, and so does his running mate, who made up the whole story about people eating dogs and cats in Ohio. They love to come up with stories that don't help us heal. All they do is further divide us. They've created stories about how climate change isn't real, or this is not the time to talk about reasonable gun safety. They've created stories about their crowd size or the size of their assets. They've also created a story that everyone wanted states to decide what a woman can do in terms of having autonomy over their own bodies. You see, all these stories that they've created only further divide us. And then they get people to repeat these stories. And after a while, if you keep hearing these stories, you start to believe that they're true. But they're not true. They're simply lies. They are simply carnival hucksters who are lying to you. In a lot of ways, they're trying to humiliate you because they know there is real pain in this country, as I mentioned up front, pain that we need to heal. But what they're doing is they're taking your pain and aggravating it for their own gain. They get rich and you get left behind. In a few short weeks, we have a choice to make about how we wish to move forward as a country. We get to write the next chapter of our story. And I will say this, Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are not perfect candidates. I don't believe there is ever a perfect candidate for everyone in this country. But I do feel confident in this. They will work to create a better tomorrow for all of us, not just some of us. And Trump and Vance will work hard to create a darker tomorrow for us, but a brighter future for them and all their elite cronies. A couple of weeks ago, I had one of my meditation teachers on the Kinsuki podcast, Sharon Salzberg, and she was encouraging people to go out and vote. But I feel compelled to take it one step further. I'm encouraging you to vote for Harris and Walz because I don't believe we can withstand 4 more years of divisiveness, of hatred, of othering, of people being humiliated. What we need is to find a way to heal, to reconnect, and move forward together. Yes, America is worth fighting for. And when we fight, we win. We win for all of us because we're all connected. We're all one. So please vote and give us a chance and create a better tomorrow for all of us, not just some of us. And that is one beautiful ripple we get to put into the world. I hope you enjoyed our series of my ride across America Thanks for listening to it. If you only caught one state or all of them, I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you carving out some of your most precious time to spend it here on the Kintsugi podcast. And I also appreciate all the wonderful ripples you're trying to put into the world. The world needs your energy, so please keep shining. And regardless of who you vote for, know this, I still love you. We just happen to see the world differently, and that's okay. But from one human to another, I see you, I hear you, and I love you. Again, because we're all connected. We're all one. And if you haven't yet left a kind review for our podcast, I hope you'll do it today, wherever you happen to listen to podcasts. And if you ever want to learn how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, or to cultivate more resilience for you and your team at work, please reach out. I'd love to chat with you. And until next week, let's celebrate our scars as golden symbols of our resilience and strength. Thanks for listening. I love you. Peace. Kindness. This episode is brought to you by Pause, Breathe, Reflect, the app that can help bring more mindfulness to your everyday moments. Imagine what would be possible if more people could live more mindfully.